episode of Authors to Know and Their Books to Read. My name is Martinique Brown. I am your host for this great show. If this is your first time ever tuning into the show, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go ahead and share this video now so that more individuals will be able to know about our guest author today. I'm so excited today, like I said, because I have a very special guest on the show today. Her name is Kimberly McLemore, and she has written a book called Memoir, Deception of the Heart, a real look into domestic violence. Can you just let the viewers know a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Obviously, my name is Kimberly McLemore. Most people actually call me author Kimberly McLemore. I live here in the Woodbridge area, which is outside of the DMV area, obviously the Washington, D.C. metro area. I am 53. I am a single mother of a 31-year-old. So obviously.
Great.
Thank you so much. I'm originally from Davenport, Iowa. Born and raised there. I've been here for about 15 years, of course, yesterday in the DC area. And I'm a military veteran as well. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about me, but that's the big pieces about who I am and what I do. And we'll get more into what I do as this conversation continues.
Definitely. So why did you actually decide to write your book?
This book, I wrote this book more than 6-7 years ago, and it actually sat on the shelf for quite some time. And I wrote this book because I wanted people to be aware that domestic violence just doesn't happen during the month that we celebrate, which is in October. It happens every single day. Domestic violence goes on currently as we are speaking. Every 20 minutes, a woman is being abused. And so sharing my story, I wanted people to really understand that it's not about being judgmental. It's about learning to understand what they're going through and realizing that domestic abuse is about control. And when you decide to take back your control, then you really truly have an opportunity to live and know that you have purpose in life. And I want to teach people to stop being stagnant, realize that they are here for a reason. And that's what I do.
That's good. So now can you walk us through your book just so viewers will have a better understanding of what your book offers?
Yes, actually, absolutely. The book itself really starts out telling the story about how two individuals met and how the journey seems so amazing and beautiful that there's no way that that journey could go from being perfection all the way down to an individual that turned into be a monster. And that's what I call the individual. I never use this person's name because I don't like to give them the power. So it just tells a beautiful story, but then it really dives into some very deep thoughts about the things that really stood out to me the most during the time that I was being abused, like things of being stalked every day or trying to be kidnapped by knife point. But then the other part of the book really explains to teach you how to not just deal with the pieces that you're dealing with at that point, but learning how to focus and moving forward. I give you steps in there about who to contact, the people that you want to make accountable. Like a lot of people really don't enjoy dealing with the police. We all know that we all have our own issues and concerns with that personally. But at the end of the day, these people are your advocates. So knowing how to know and pick and choose who are going to be your advocates and people are going to be there to support you. So that book gives you every step that you need to have to not just focus on the tragedy, but also focus on knowing how to move forward.
Let me ask you something. Since you brought up using the police as an advocate, have you ever heard from maybe this occurring in your life or just hearing other survivors' stories? Do the police ever get tired of coming to that specific address on a domestic violence call?
To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they ever got tired. The thing that I think amazed me the most about them is that they never were tired. They really wanted to be there. It got to the point where things were so bad for me, and we weren't even living together at the time, that I felt like they were actually living in my home, the police. They literally came every single day to check up on me, to sit there, to review, to see if I was getting any more phone calls, threatening phone calls, all these things that I never would have thought that they would put the time and effort into. They were truly my backbone during that time.
Oh, so you're not okay. So you're saying they did that type of support
Yes.
after you left the person.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And it wasn't so much that I left him, he had to leave me. It was my environment, my home. So the whole situation, and that's where a lot of people get everything very twisted when it comes to abuse. And 99% of the time, people think that it's always the woman that has to get up and leave. That's the first question that people ask me is, well, why did you get up and leave? And the main question should be asked is, what can I do to help you? And, those are things that aren't really being asked. And so when you have the people who, as I call your advocates. So my advocates weren't just the police. My other advocates were the attorneys that were involved, all the people that you sometimes want to shy away from or feel embarrassed to talk to because here you got all these people coming from the outside world into your personal life and your space. Those are the people that truly showed me that they cared. And, it's just one of those situations where you have to think about yourself as being number one, and you have to get the embarrassment away from you and stop thinking about what other people think. And the ones you think that are your friends, those are the ones who ran away the quickest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did it take you a while to get to that point where you said, you know what, I can no longer allow embarrassment to stop me from telling other people about this? How long did it take you to transition to that point in your life where you said, you know what, I'm getting this story out of my system?
It actually, I mean, like I said, I wrote the book probably a year after the incident because it was a very healing piece for me. And it sat on the shelf for 6 years.
Okay.
So this book,
Wait, are you saying you finished it and then it
it,
sat on the shelf?
yes, ma'am. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And a part of that is because, like you were asking me in the question, that it's about realizing that you're putting all of your information out there. People are they're going to have a judgment on you. They're going to have thoughts. They're going to say things about you, and people, because a lot of times people don't understand. They don't have a clue of what you really have actually gone through. All they know is that, well, here you've got this book and, what are you trying to say? A lot of people actually look at domestic violence. Oh, it's just another thing. It's another, situation that happened. But yeah, it sat there for a long time. But it was a moment for me where actually my son pushed me into getting the story out. He said, Mom, you have a story that needs to be told and somebody needs your help. And it's so ironic because I can remember when I first had my first book signing for the book. In the audience, I had people that I did not know, which was the most beautiful part about the book signing. And I had 3 or 4 people who actually stood up and said, I'm being abused right now. During that time of the book signing, they're saying, I need your help. I didn't know who else to reach out. They happened to see the information and they said, I'm going to come. So it's effective. And so when we think that we're holding our stories back, and we think that's the best way to do it, it really is not the best thing to do. We all have a story to tell. I just hope and pray that everybody doesn't have such a tragic story to tell.
Yeah.
But if you do, you need to share the information. You need to share your resources about what it is that you did in order to help yourself get through it, because there's somebody out there who's listening to me right now and is saying, I'm in this situation. How can I do this? And what do I need to do to get out of it?
Definitely. And I'm glad that you brought that point up. If you're just now tuning into the show, we have author Kimberly McLemore on the show. She's the author of Memoir, Deception of the Heart, a real look into domestic violence. If you do know someone that is currently in an abusive relationship, if you can just go ahead and share this page to their Facebook page right now, that would be great. You may have a problem with confronting them about their current situation, but hopefully that they'll watch this show and that it will speak to their heart and they will utilize Kimberly's services as well as purchase her book. If you are someone that's going through or in a domestic violent relationship, I would just pray that you hear author Kimberly's story and her words are able to empower you and encourage you at the same time, and that you also purchase the book. All of the contact information and the link of how to purchase the book from Amazon and Barnes and Noble is in the description box. So don't forget that throughout the show, okay? So who specifically was this book written for?
To be honest, it was really specifically in the beginning written for me because, like I said, I use it as a healing tool. After going through, the process of talking to doctors and psychologists, I mean, it's like you go through this whole process of trying to figure out what you want to do after you realize that you are free, per se. And so then once I decided that, like I said, it really wasn't about me anymore, it truly was to reach out to those women, but also to men that who are being abused every day. And we find that our men are the ones who don't talk about it as much and won't, share their stories, but there are just as many men who are being abused from women every day. And what I'm trying to teach people is how to rewrite your story. Realize that your story does not have to stop at the day and the point of where you lived. I actually get really frustrated. People continually call me a survivor. I am not a survivor anymore. I was surviving when I was going through the process of being abused. And if you keep staying in that mindset of believing that you are just a survivor, you will always maintain that. So I really try to help people understand that get out of that mode, become your own hero, stop waiting for somebody to constantly pat you on the back and tell you to move forward. It's time for you to make your mind up because God has given you the tools. You're here. And as long as you're physically here, that's where you know that you can better yourself and continue to realize that you are not that person that you used to be, and you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you something. If an individual is not in a violent abusive relationship, can they still utilize this book? Like, is there anything in the book that speaks to how to be supportive to someone that is in this type of relationship?
Absolutely. And that's where most people make their mistakes. Abuse is not about the violence. It's not about just raising the hand or the fist. Abuse starts from the way that you talk to somebody. And just in our general conversations that we have today, people are calling people out of their names, people are raising their voices, people use threatening ways to communicate. So abuse starts from the time that the person is talking to you. But a lot of times we have a tendency to push it aside. We'll say, oh, he's just having a bad day, or, it's just something not going on. It's not really about me. But at the same token, that's where it all begins before it even escalates to the physical side. And so, yes, in my book, I always talk about the fact that there's there's one chapter where I kind of focus on the fact that it's not about just the raise of the hand. It's about control.
Okay.
When the individual loses control, that's when all the physical starts to come, but it starts very minute. And like I was saying in the beginning, we started out as being this perfect couple. There is no such thing as perfection. See? And so when you start to learn about an individual, we all see signs that we don't particularly care about a person, but it's those particular signs that that are really standing there saying, you know what, are you going to stay here or are you going to run? When you have those signs that tells you it's time for you to run, then that's letting you know that this situation is not meant for you, and it's okay, because it's better to get out of it now than to be in a situation where you see that it's escalating. And for me, I could see it escalating, and the more I tried to get out of it early on, the harder it was, because that was the more the control that he was losing. And you're going to go through the process of, the crying, getting on your knees and begging, and, I mean to do this. When you have to be told these things, these are the things that should tell you it's time to run away. So yes, I provide the same information I'm talking to you about now that is actually in the book.
Explain that part to me when you said, if you had to be told these things, what things are you referring to?
When somebody has to tell you and remind you and say, for instance, you hear a lot of times is when we hear, oh, I'm a good man, or why do you want to leave me when we're going through these changes? There's always it's always about them. It's never truly about the relationship. And that's because they know they're going to lose the control that they had. Mm-hmm. So when somebody has to remind you how great they are without having to show you by action, there's a problem there. Mm-hmm. And that's with anything that we do a lot of times in life. We all have a tendency to say, well, this is who I am. But are you showing me that this is the person that you are? Mm-hmm. So if this person is telling you, oh, I'm a great man, but then the next minute they're ready to knock you upside your head, then what is that telling you? Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I tell people to look forward to, understand that there's definitely a problem there. And we know that there's a problem, but as women, we are nurturers. So we have a tendency to want to nurture our men. We have a tendency to want to change them. You cannot change people from who they are. They have to be willing to change themselves.
You know what was surprising that you said, I've never heard it put this way, that the physical abuse begins to start when they're seeing that they're losing control.
Yes.
I've never heard that.
Yes. And it's the truth, because in any relationship, we all want to feel like we have some type of control. We all want to understand and think that we are truly in love. And then we all know when things go wrong, we have to figure out how to handle that. Right. Okay. And so if you don't have the capabilities to communicate properly and realize that having to hit somebody or scream and yell at them at the top of your lung is the way to get their attention, there is truly a problem there, and we all have done it. We all scream, we all yell, we all get angry, but there's certain points where you can see when a person is completely losing control. And like right now, you and I are having a great conversation. We could be having that same conversation, and 2 seconds later, I would have a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde. I would not know what just happened. So a lot of times too, you may be dealing with somebody who is mentally has issues, who may be bipolar. That's what I had learned later on, that the individual that I had been dating and seeing was a bipolar and was diagnosed during the time that we were going through the process of our court hearing. So there was so many things I did not know about this person, but every day I seen a different person. I literally got to the point where I did not know who he was anymore.
Okay.
But I didn't know.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How long were y'all together?
Be honest, we were literally only together 3 years. But out of those 3 years, it was probably the worst 3 years I had ever spent. The first year and a half was great. And then after that, everything just started going sideways. And as time went on, I learned there was a lot of reasons of what was going on with him personally. But everything that he did, he took it out on me, no matter what the circumstances was.
And you know what, author Kimberly McLemore, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is not a fear that overtakes my life or anything when it comes to relationships, but this is something that I have thought about. So I'm a single woman, and I think about, what if I'm with, you know how they say date somebody for a while so you can get to know them, and then they also say like do the season, like they do all 4 seasons so you
exactly
who they are.
Right.
And that's kind of a fear that I have, what you just said. You said everything was great for a year and a half. To me, when if I was talking to you, I'm like, oh, a year and a half, that's good. You know that person.
Right.
And so that's a fear. Like, I know this person for a year and a half. I've been spending time with him and everything. And then he just flipped the script and changes. Please tell me, they're looking back in retrospect, there had to be some signs within that year and a half.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just need to make sure.
And that's the thing. And that was the thing that, the part that was interesting though, was that I really didn't start to see it until we started to live with each other. But there was little things that I was like, okay, well, why is he, so upset, or what's going on with him personally that he wasn't sharing? So communication was always a huge issue. But to hear what you're saying, I absolutely understand. But for me, it was a personal choice to decide that, I had been married before, and what I had learned, that you never know enough about a person until you live with them, right? And obviously my family was very against the fact that, oh, well, why are you going to live with this person? I said, because I've done it the right way the first time. I did everything the right way, everything you could possibly imagine to do it the right way. So I said, nope, I'm gonna stick to my guns, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, no, we're gonna live with each other. And boy, oh boy, oh boy. I mean, you learn everything from how you hate the way that they throw their clothes on the floor to, the way they cook. I mean, there's so many things you can learn about a person, but when you're that close to an individual every day, you obviously are going to see things you're not going to see when you're just going out on dates. Because when we date each other, the whole purpose is to look great, right? So when you're dating, it's the situation of, oh, he's just so sweet, so kind. He brings me flowers, he takes me out to nice places. But what do you see behind those closed doors? And you're not going to see that when you're just going out on dates. And obviously, I think the big part of it too, like I keep saying, is communication. A lot of times when we're in relationships, we don't communicate properly. We don't ask the hard questions during the time that we're dating, because we want to stay, as I call it, in that honeymoon phase.
Right. We don't even want to know.
Right. Exactly. So, the honeymoon phase should not have to go away permanently, but at the same time, you should also have those great conversations that you would normally have when you're in a full-fledged relationship, when you decide that, oh, the ring's going to come on, we're going to get married, we're going to start making all these changes. All those conversations should be coming up throughout the process of your dating. And as I always like to say, I love to be courted. I want to be dated properly. I don't want you just to say, well, here's some flowers, and then you think that's going to make my day for the rest of my life, So there's just a lot of things that you learn. And I think a lot of it is, I think age is a part of it as well, because I'm a little more older now. I'm a lot more mature, and the things that I was going through that time frame, I was in my 40s then. And, so as we're younger, it's all fluff. But a part of it, like I say, you have to just be smart, and you just have to absolutely look at the signs that you would not normally think about, or like I said, have those discussions that you probably wouldn't think about having unless you think that, oh, this is the right one, right? But sometimes you need to have those hard discussions up front.
Definitely. And we actually have a couple of comments. Thank you, Regina, for tuning into the show. Make sure you go ahead and share this page now. But Regina, it was more so just a comment,
Okay.
She was just saying, don't only say 3 years, that's a significant amount of time. And she also commented and said 1.5 years is statistically when the funk hits the fan.
There you go. See?
When the funk hits the fan.
See, and it's reality, and it's a great comment. Regina absolutely made a great point, that sometimes when I look at it, it's like, 3 years, it just seems like, to me, it was almost like a waste of time. But in that 3 years, I also really learned a lot about who I was as an individual, and the things that I would take for granted, and not really paying attention to the details that were surrounding me. But I definitely learned to take what I had gone through, and I look at life differently, because everything that happened to me, it changed me forever. It really did. From the way I looked, from the way that I date, all of those things. And so I've learned to no longer make excuses for individuals that are not right for me. I'm not going to say that every man is a bad man, because that's the first thing you get asked, well, do you date? Well, yeah, but at the same time, I have to be comfortable for what's right for me.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what lies do you think individuals who are in domestic violence relationships tell themselves that makes them stay?
Oh, usually it's either a financial situation. So most women will tell themselves, well, where am I going to live? How am I going to handle this? What am I going to do? And if they have kids that are involved, that's always the number one thing. Well, I don't want my kids to be without a father. And what am I going to do? And like I tell these ladies, let me explain something to you. It does not matter about the materialistic if you're not here to take care of yourself or take care of those children. You can always replace your materials. Those things can come and go. You don't have to even be in a bad relationship in order to lose those material items, but you cannot bring your life back. And so when you know and you understand that you have a problem and you need to get out of it, you have to do what you need to do. There's plenty of organizations out here that can help you. If you don't know where those organizations are within your community, because every state, every community has different laws, different organizations, you need to reach out. You can reach out to me. I will help you find them. But you can look into locally and try to find any. There's plenty of domestic violence shelters within your communities. A lot of them are hidden, believe it or not. I mean, even the community I live now, there's one that's like a mile away, but you would never know it because it's well hidden, and they don't disperse that information out unless it's needed. So there's definitely enough people out here to keep you safe. But I just get really frustrated when, that's the first thing that people hear is that, oh, well, what about the kids? Well, the kids don't need to be placed in that type of environment. And what a lot of people don't realize that what those kids are looking at every day, they will carry that with them for life. 80% of the time, what they see, they will end up doing.
That's good. That's really a good point that you just made about that, because, especially I think with some of the celebrities that we hear about, we learn that they were in a, a product of like seeing their parents abuse each other and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I think that that's so sad, because sometimes I think that, and not to take any responsibility off of the abuser, but you know, sometimes they do grow up in those households. So I
Of
just
course.
I just hate that the cycle that goes on with just different things that kids see, and they begin to think that that's how you love someone.
Right, exactly. Keyword. And that's usually the problem with most abusers, is that they really believe this is the right thing to do because that's all they know. So, it's with anything in life. If you're constantly being shown or told that you're this or that, you're going to believe it. Eventually, at due time, you're going to either act that way or you're going to actually believe that that is the proper way to do and live in a relationship. And usually those people, when they have these issues, they don't realize that they need to sit down and talk to somebody. They need to learn the right way to love. And like your wording was properly said. Love is what people think this is. Oh, this is it. This is that. And usually the word love is used to keep that individual within the relationship. It's like, oh, I love you. Okay, no, being in love and saying I love you is two different things. And if you got to beat somebody upside the head and say, oh, this is how I love you, then you guys, neither one of y'all know what love is then at that point.
Mm-hmm. Author Kimberly McLemore, I'm just gonna tell you now, I like you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I like you too.
It's good. I'm telling you, you are solid. But let me ask you this. So I know we touched on it, how family members and friends can be supportive to someone that's still in these domestic these abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How else can they be supportive? Because I would think to just tell the person, you need to get out that relationship, you need to get out of it. Is that all I can do?
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, saying that get out of it is one thing, but what are you going to do to help them? So if you're saying to get out of it, will you provide your home? Maybe will you help them get another apartment? Will you take them to a safe house? Will you get them an attorney? Will you take them to the police station? And that's the hardest thing in the world to do, is actually get involved, because 90% of the time we all know that if you're in a relationship, you've already met this individual. So they're going to come after you. They're going to come after the people that they know will support them, right? Mm-hmm. And then my situation was different because my family doesn't live here. I'm originally from, like I said, Davenport, Iowa. So he felt that I was all alone. And where he made his mistake is, even though I'm 1,000-something miles away, I had more support surrounding me that he never had a clue of. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be supportive, don't bring lip service, as I call it. Do something. Show them that you're going to be supportive and save that family, because I'm telling you, we think that we have all the answers when we're being abused, but we don't. We think if we hide and shelter ourselves and nobody's going to pay attention to it, we're going to be fine. But 90% of the time, people who are outside looking in notice everything. So if you notice this is going on with the person that you love and care about, help them. Like I said, don't give lip service, really, truly help them.
So maybe I should be specific in how I can help them. Like maybe if I say, let's say that we were friends and I knew that you were in this relationship, then I could say, Kimberly, whenever you need to come to my house, just let me know and you can stay here. Should I be specific like that?
You absolutely should be specific, and not so much when you need to say, look, this is what you're going to do. Because like I said, as the person who's being abused, we think that we're smarter than you are, right? We think we're hiding everything. And 90% of the time we're going through so much that we really don't have all the answers. And we need that person to guide us and tell us, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to come with me right now. We're going to pack up your baby's clothes and you're leaving.
Okay.
So don't give them the option. Say, this is what you're going to do, because 90% of the time, if you're giving them an option, what are we going to do? They usually step backwards, right? Now they may come forward and say, okay, I'm going to go. And then guess what? No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave the kids here, but I'm going to go back. Mm-hmm. And when you have situations like that, you still have to be encouraging to make them understand that what are you going back to? What is so important that you got to hold on to and that you may not make it back? So there's so many examples of women doing that every day. And like I said, you don't even have to have kids involved. It's just knowing that there's that support there. And like I said, the people that you normally believe that are going to be supportive of you are the ones who will not. So you do have to rely on what's available, the resources that are out there. My biggest help was, like I said, the advocates were the police department, my attorneys, and the organization I was attached to that helped me tremendously. And then as time went on, I did have a couple other people that I could absolutely depend on, because even after you go through the process of going through court and everything, and that's the other thing that women don't do, is that they refuse to put charges on them and go through the court proceedings to get them behind bars. You are doing yourself a disservice when you do not move forward. Because guess what happens, ladies? They will come back for you. And if they can't get you, they'll start with somebody else. Mm-hmm. So you're not helping anybody out. You may be free for that moment, but at the end of the day, you haven't dealt with the situation. So we always encourage that you take the steps that you need to take and move forward, no matter how embarrassing it is, no matter what's being said in that courtroom. At the end of the day, you will get justice. And I can say that I got my justice 10 years, and it was worth every minute of it, every minute of it.
Definitely. So now let me ask you something. How do you help that support system get over that fear that now they are involved in this relationship when they start helping?
Well, I think a big part of that, it's hard to, I can't say you're not going to be fearful, especially if they know where you live. A lot of times the information is going to be provided and passed through the police as well. So they will be there to protect their home, and to, if you have any instances, they know who they can reach out to. But at the same token, what I've learned is that the cowardly individual won't push that button as much, because they know that they're being watched 90% of the time. So their focus is always going to be in places where they see that you constantly frequent. So to give you an example, I am into Zumba. I love Zumba a lot, and I was actually an instructor. And so I was going to a class one night. Because that was my normal routine, he actually showed up to the building and my class and was actually trying to kidnap me by knife point in front of all these people. He didn't care. So that's the other thing is, you want to change your routine. You want to do things differently. So once they realize that they can't find you or realize that you're not in the same environment, you will definitely, that'll be a distraction for them, but it'll also be a frustration at the same time. But for those who are supporting you, you pretty much know what you're really getting involved in. So you know that there's going to be some issues, but when you know you have issues, then you need to be protected, and you need to be able to tell the police that, hey, this person is contacting me or they're coming to my home. And, we've had that happen. In my situation with his family, he had family that lived here in town, and he was actually going to live with them. He actually got kicked out of that home. Their family was like, no, you're bringing too much drama. These are the things you're happening. The police were at their house every night. So there are people who will support you on both sides, even though the abuser, has family members that, he thought he could trust. They're not always going to be on their side. So, just know that the people who are supporting you, and when they know that they can no longer support you, they will help you. And you can say there are other environments that you can be in. Everybody's situation is very different. Mine was completely different. I don't have any young kids or anything, but I was not happy about wanting to leave my home. So, I guess I could say I was a little bit more braver than some people might have been, because I was like, hey, bring it on. If you're coming here, come here. Okay. Because you finally get, like I said, you get tired of the fear. And after a while, the fear just goes away, and you just start to build your strength and realize that, like I said, you do have purpose, and there's a reason that I'm here, and I was not going to let this individual continue to control my life.
That's good. That's good. So with all of the other books out there that talks about domestic violence, why is your book one of the best ones to add to our collection?
I think the reason why I would consider my book to be one of the best ones is because it's not just, like I said, based on just the story of being abused. It's really talks about specific things that I point out of how you can recontrol your life. Mm-hmm. I give you stats. I talk about, all the steps you need to take. And I think that's part of the difference. Like I said, unfortunately, domestic violence is nothing new. And so a lot of times when people hear these stories, they're like, oh, here's another one. But at the end of the day, anybody who can give you any sound information of what it means to survive and get beyond survival and know that life is there waiting for you and here's the steps to do it, that's always going to be a good book.
Definitely. And this is, even if you're not in a um, relationship that is violent, this will be a great book to give to someone as a gift.
Right, right. But and like I said, even if you're in a great relationship, always, like I said, be aware of what you're doing in that relationship, who you're with. If there are things that don't sit well with you, communicate about it. Don't wait till it gets so high strung that the next thing you know, you guys are screaming and you're yelling and you're fighting each other over something that could have simply just been communicated. And if it doesn't work, it's better to know now than to get completely involved in the person and go down this marriage scenario. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting in divorce court and it's even 10 times worse. So communicate.
That's good. So can you tell the viewers about your other two books?
My very first book that I actually wrote was back in 2008 called How to Be a Success by Just Being You. And I really am about self-identification. So that book really talks about who are you? What does success really mean to you? Do you have to truly conform to what people tell you about how success should be? So that's what that book is about. And you can also find that obviously on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And then of course,
and what's the name of that book again?
It's called How to Be a Success by Just Being You.
Okay.
And then my newest book is Are You Living or Existing? The Pros and Cons of Balancing Life. And this really talks about, are you living at your best? Or are you just living through the lens of others? So I really have a lot of things in that book where it's truly focusing on, why do you have to wait till tomorrow in order to do what you should be doing today? So yeah, so a lot of self-identification is what I'm about.
That's excellent. So I know that you actually host a weekly and monthly podcast. Can you tell the viewers more about the podcast as well as who you created them for?
Sure. I am the CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative. So I have a weekly podcast show called WSBI, Your Resource for Success, which is on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Tumblr, YouTube, LinkedIn, and a few other places. And that really is for women who are either owners, business owners, small business owners, or inspiring to be owners. And you're actually learning about what it means to own a business, the ups and downs, and then my guests provide resources available to start your business. So I've been doing that one for about 3 years, and I just love that program because, like I said, it's really all about sharing information. And then my other show is called The Author's Corner. As you know, I'm an author, so I have a business called Author Kimberly McLemore, LLC. And so that one is a monthly show where I have two amazing guests come on Friday evenings, once a month, where they talk about why they wrote their books, where you can purchase them at, what other events they may be having coming up that's in regards to their books, and just telling their backstory about how they went from one place to the next, and here they are being an author.
And the links to her podcast are in the description box for you as well. So I know that you're actually hosting a self-publishing workshop in Entrepreneurial Networking Brunch in Easton, Pennsylvania on August 17th. Can you tell us more about that event?
Yes, being that I'm an author, I actually train people how to self-publish their own books. So being a book coach and so forth, I actually will give you all the steps that it takes for you to not just write the book, but know what to do after you write the book. Because our biggest problem when being an author, most people are like, oh, I wrote a book, but then they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to get a cover done. They don't know what it means to do the interior. All the things that you need to understand about what it means to self-publish a book, I will teach you that. So I teach you how to cut the middleman out. Obviously, for some people, that may not be beneficial, but I teach you the pros and cons of whether you're self-publishing or whether you're going through the original publishing style to get published. So yeah, we're excited about this. It's not just me. It's a great event. This will be my second time going back up to Easton, Pennsylvania. I will be with Joyful Self Wellness Center. Christy Med is the owner of that program. And then I have Miss Wanda Kane, who is actually running the networking brunch. And she has a business called Connects. So, and then we have a guest speaker coming talking about marketing and the social media platform, which is Michelle Dofiger. So I'm excited about this. It's a much larger event than what we had last year, but right now we do currently have early bird registration was at $65. We just extended it to the 15th of July. So for those who are in the community, either in the Eastern Pennsylvania community or surrounding areas, please come. The last event we had was sold out. We actually had people come all the way from Cleveland to take the class. So I will provide all the materials and you will also get a signed copy of my newest book. So, come and enjoy the class, network with some other entrepreneurs if you're an entrepreneur. And one thing a lot of people don't understand as well is that as an author, you are an entrepreneur and business owner. At that point, I will also give you tips about how to become that business person during that class as well.
That's good. That's good. And if you're interested in attending that event, the registration link is in the description box. So can you tell us more about your company, Women's Small Business Initiative, also known as WSBI?
Sure. Yeah. And actually, WSBI is just a online platform. So it's kind of the one all be all type program where women can register for free, share information that they probably would not share with everyone else. So it'd be strictly for the members. And it's all about not having to reinvent the wheel. We're all in business, but there's a lot of tools and resources that are out there. And like I said, a lot of times we don't always want to post it on Facebook. We don't always want to give away our goodies for free. But at the same token, there's an opportunity for women to chat. So there's a chat form on there. Like I said, they can build their platform right there on that online platform, and it's very easy to do. So it's really available. I would definitely like to see more women utilize the tool. You can also upload videos and everything that you need to do, you can do in that one form.
Okay. Author Kimberly McLemore, I thank you again for just being on the show, Authors to Know and Their Books to Read. And I hope you have a great day. Bye, y'all.